Let's call everyone to order. And I would like to welcome everyone back. I was just taking a quick peek at the names we have here. It appears we've got a pretty full house, and we are expecting a few first-time visitors and guests. So I will kick it off by thanking everyone for their efforts over the past week. Chatting with Peter earlier today, we counted up at least 85 participants throughout the last 10 days. 30 countries or nationalities represented, 23 live sessions, and countless working groups and one-on-one mentoring. Plus, as I mentioned tonight, we may have some United Nations officials, government officials, and special guests that we've invited who may pop in to hear some of the presentations, not to make any of the presenters any more nervous than they might already be. But it's part of our effort to leverage what is being presented here. And of course, once things are recorded, we have a long list of people who are going to push out these presentations to, not just of those that are selected by the judges. Peter, did you want to put up the link to the submissions so people have that in the chat area? But we're going to shut down the chat for tonight because we have a list now of 7 presenters plus a video, and we're trying to maximize their time that they have. But when the judges are deliberating, we'll open it up to questions and answers for everyone else, because part of the goal is to do that kind of networking now that we hear what people have achieved over the last 7 to 10 days, and try to make connections for them and try to bring their project to the next level. So that's as important a part of this as judging. I'm part of something that used to be called the Kellogg Innovation Network at Northwestern University. It's now called the World Innovation Network because it has spun off a network of networks. We've already been in dialogue with them. 1 or 2 of them may pop in, but one of the things we learned when we used to do it on campus at Northwestern and judge the undergraduate business plan competition is it didn't really matter who was selected the winner, because virtually everyone who presented found someone in the audience who was either ready to write a check and fund them or introduce them to someone who could fund them. So again, the community of interest we've built here is the most important thing. Let's not forget to start with the why. A couple of us have invoked Simon Sinek and Stephen Covey, beginning with the end in mind. The worsening humanitarian crisis that we've seen in both developed and developing countries, both the global north and the global south, made worse by COVID-19, which has both disrupted traditional supply chains and created an opportunity to rethink some of the outdated business models and relationships. Now, COVID's epidemiology has also shown the underlying social determinants of health, including food and nutrition and related diseases like obesity, cardiovascular ailments, and other aggravating factors, are making an infectious disease outcome even worse. So there's no time like now to do this. This was put together in very short order, an impressive group of people. But one thing that was a consensus is no longer should food and health be in 2 separate silos. This 10-day hackathon is just a start. And by creating a community of interest, we can be a catalyst for some of the various lines of inquiry and tangible solutions. Thanks to members of YPO, CEOs of ongoing concern, several of whom have come back after doing deep dives for us today. Think tanks, government policymakers, public-private partnership experts have all had their input. And this event has sought market-based solutions to solve market disruptions and inefficiencies, and in some cases, market failures, so that systems can sustain themselves with firm business practices. So now more than ever, there must be a relationship of trust between government and the private sector, and that means businesses and NGOs, charities, faith-based organizations, and civic groups. And what's great is that a lot of them are represented here, and if not represented by the first thing on someone's resume, everyone has a social cause or civic-minded attitude that I've met, and as I've looked at bios, I'm impressed by the diversity of accomplishment as well. I'll introduce the judges in just a moment because they are among the most accomplished we've had. So the projects that will be presented will get 3 minutes strictly. I'll be keeping time. If necessary, I will use my referee's yellow cards. For those of you in North and Central America, I actually have a CONCACAF card I got refereeing years ago. I don't like red cards, so we'll give you a green card when it's time to say, go off stage. But the point is to get your point across as succinctly as possible. We want to leave the judges a couple of minutes to ask some questions. And then, to be fair to everyone, try and keep it to that 3+2 format so that everyone gets a fair hearing, and then the judges can deliberate. Some of you have totally started from scratch. Some have an ongoing concern that you've ramped up. I think, Peter, you said you're gonna judge them on that curve, or maybe come up with 2 separate prizes to be determined. And then we do have a video presentation from one, and we do also have an ongoing concern that's not part of the judging, but that we wanted to put in front of you because it's been talked about all week. The criteria: novelty, viability, impact, or scalability. And so whether it's prototyped or notional or already going to market and just scaling up, these sort of represent some great ideas out there and things that can be done. Let me start with the bios of the judges. We have Stefano Rettore. His bio is too long to read in its entirety, but he's actively engaged as an investor, strategic advisor, and board member in industry efforts to adapt to evolving trends. With Archer Daniels Midland, which everyone knows, he's been on the executive council, president of ADM Ag Services Origination, the largest of ADM's 4 business units by revenues. 6,200 employees, 25 billion in work there. Prior was with CHS International, which, if you don't recognize the brand, it's a Fortune 100 company, and head of the company's South America operations based in Sao Paulo. Bem-vindo. He served on boards. I won't go through the whole list, but this is exactly the type of person who we want to get your feedback. Harvard Business School, INSEAD, Université Jean Moulin, Università degli Studi di Torino. So a diverse geographic background as well. Liliana Mitic, I see you've made it on the line. I hope I'm pronouncing Mitic correctly, the Serbian way. Long-term financial services, over 20 years, and IT services. So again, we'll have the IT side of this well represented by the judges. Areas of expertise include strategic management, IT governance strategy, business IT transformation, digitization and services, cost optimization, and go-to-market strategies. Again, a diverse geographic background, and some of the big names you would recognize: Siemens, IT, and currently based in Munich. And of course, we all know Peter, but sometimes those of us who've known him the longest don't recognize what a distinguished history he has. He's on the advisory board of FinTech for Good and an active member of the Maitri platform, but most impressive, he's been named one of the FinTech Top 100 Sustainable Development Goals influencers in 2019. I knew him when he was just a kid, and a Foreign Service officer. He has been named a responsible leader by the BMW Foundation's Herbert Quant's Responsible Leaders Network. And I know this, these are both very distinguished awards, both the Meritorious Service and Superior Honor Awards with the United States Department of State as a diplomat. Has an education from SAIS and State University of New York, and probably needs no further introduction, but that's your audience pitchers. So please get ready. John Poor is always ready. And always one of the first ones on the line. So I hope he doesn't mind that he's going to go first. And what I'm going to do is let everyone know who's up next and who's on deck right behind them so they can have the next 3 to 5 minutes to get their head into it. But John, if you're ready, we'll ask Mehmet to get your video presentation ready. Is it up, Mehmet? And I won't start the clock.
I'm so happy to be first.
Are you ready?
Yes, it's
You're the first one in the
now.
elevator. It's hopefully a mid-rise, not a low rise. And if you can, would you like an introduction, or would you like to introduce yourself? And then I'll start the clock and you can get into the presentation of your program.
No, I can introduce myself. I will say that one is not my slide.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. No, you're perfectly fine.
If Ritu Parikh, Farm to Table, up next. So that's the order we're going in right now. So.
Yes.
Right. Cool. All right, so my name is John Poor. I'm a co-founder in the company Omni LLC. We're a very different kind of business model, not necessarily a consultant, but also not a producer. We're somewhere in between. And that's really what I'm going to hope to explain in the next 5 minutes. We are pursuing a strategy of vertical supply chain integration, very meaningful and intentional supply chain facilitation, in order to address many of the issues that have been talked about during this conference. So considering that, I can say that I'm ready to jump in so everybody has the most time possible to speak. All right, we good to go?
Great.
Perfect. So on behalf of Omni LLC, I'll be presenting driving productivity through supply chain integration. And just to make clear what the problem is that we're facing, our population growth is outstripping our productivity growth. Why this is happening? 80% of the food in the world is produced on smallhold farms, and those smallhold farms do not have the tools that the larger agricultural producers do. They're unable to access technology. They're unable to implement capital improvements. They have no banking services. They're faced with a number of barriers. And something that's very important to note before moving on, not only do we have to improve their productivity in order to meet the needs of a 2050 population, but we have to make sure that we're meeting the SDG goals surrounding these smallhold farms so that they have the education to continue those processes, so they have the roads to get their stuff to market, so they have the healthcare where if they get sick, the whole operation doesn't fall apart. Please, next slide. No, next slide, please.
Yes.
All right, sorry. All right, so are there programs that are addressing this, or are there really case studies that show the feasibility of addressing such a large issue across so many smallhold farms in the world? The answer is yes. It falls into two separate categories. There's interventionist strategies and permanent operations, both of which have showed that we can make an impact in this sector. If we look at interventionist strategies, probably the best example is going to be TechnoServe. They had a program in Nicaragua that managed to help 5,500 smallhold farmers increase their incomes by 50 to 80%, and it generated $27.4 million of additional revenue. Why don't we just use this model? Why are we proposing something new? They're there, and then they're gone. So as soon as they leave Nicaragua, all of the banking services, all the improvement services, farm management, and otherwise is gone with them. That productivity gain is locked in, but it's going to run stagnant. So are there alternative models to this? That's when we get into permanent operators that actually integrate themselves with the smallhold farms. We can see Jaipur Rugs Foundation, Bali Seafood, Everlane. These are companies that intentionally vertically integrate. Now, they're able to accomplish tremendous things, helping, in the case of Jaipur Rugs, 40,000 untouchable artisans, 80% female, sell 500,000 rugs a year on international markets. They're so integrated that they can distribute in COVID-19 with emergency support, stimulus checks, all of these kind of things. Why don't we pursue this model? It's specialized. It's locked into one specific segment, and we're not seeing it applied to agriculture at all. So this is when we present. Okay, next slide. So our solution is combining these two models. We're going to do everything that the TechnoServe is doing: identify, analyze, innovate, implement. Then we're going to take what Jaipur is doing, and we're going to verify and optimize for permanence with that. And if you go to the next slide, and the next slide, just skip the slide after that. One more slide. All right, so by doing the combination, by putting the combination of these things together, we're going to be actually becoming part of the supply chain, allowing investment money from the United States to pour into this, and creating that permanent connection that will allow these farmers, through ownership in the United States business models, to hedge regional risk, hedge demand risk, deal with collective bargaining power. They're going to be able to provide banking services, capital barriers. We're going to be able to overcome all of the issues that are stopping productivity in its tracks, and we're going to be able to create a model that's replicable and self-perpetuating in order to address the productivity issues that are keeping us from feeding the human population in 2050. There's a lot of details I would have loved to explain. Sorry about that.
Let's start with Stefano. You've been very attentive. I can tell by just the way you're looking into the screen. Do you have any questions?
Yes, so John, can you make an example on the impact on farmers so that I can get let's say, how the solution will be able to improve either their profitability, their livelihood, or the supply chain for customers?
Absolutely. So Mehmet, if you wouldn't mind going back one slide. We are actually a project that is underway partially at the moment. We're working on a solution in India with areca palm plantations. They also produce betel nut. We've done the first 3 steps. We're in the process where we've actually identified a good that has tremendous export value. And we looked at what kind of value could be added. Why is it not coming to the U.S. economy at the moment, this product that's a byproduct of their farming operations? And it's simple things. There's quality control issues that create fungus, that create contamination, where only about 10% of their stock is actually able to come to the United States. If you were to put a simple UV light in to start running these things through and purify the plates before they're packaged, you'd be able to jump that up to 60%. So we run through a bunch of different process improvements that are low cost and easy to implement and reproducible, and we found that we could increase the value per frond about 280%, which actually makes this agricultural byproduct rival the primary product of the crop in value. Now, as far as the actual structuring that can return that value back to the individual farmers, that's going to take a stakeholder analysis, and it's going to take a big impact analysis to determine the best way to do that. We want to make sure that the farmers have ownership in the U.S. side of distribution. The reason that we want to do that is because it's going to diversify away from the crop as far as risk and everything is concerned, but it's also going to tie their fate to the U.S. owners, where if that crop fails, they have a continued income from a U.S. business. They're able to overcome those cultural barriers that keep them out of the international markets. And on the U.S. side, you have U.S. business people who are going to design among their crops and develop inputs that are specific to the U.S. market. If you're an Indian, you don't know U.S. markets well enough to identify the cultural needs of the U.S. If you're in the U.S., you don't understand the cultural markets of India. So it allows that trade-off when you're actually integrating and having ownership on both sides.
Good points. Thanks, John. Liliana, I want to make sure there's a little bit of time added so you can ask any questions you have.
Yeah, so my question is mainly, so how would you go to market look like? I mean, how would you approach the beneficiaries? How would you do that?
Yeah. So actually going to market, a little more background on myself. I have an international trade background and a lot of business development experience, specifically in account management and sales and marketing. So these are 2 areas that I know really well, and it's something that has led into the creation of this. On the other side, one of my co-founders is Nepali. He's done a lot in the manufacturing realm, supply chain, etc. So going to market for us, we've got a product development specialist at the moment designing for U.S. markets. As soon as we've got that product catalog, then we're going to start sitting in front of investors saying these are the processes that need to take place in order to get this into U.S. markets. We're talking to restaurant groups about utilizing this material within their disposable goods and everything else. And we are going to push those initial sales. So we are raising enough capital to have at-large shipments of, say, 100,000 units starting in the first year, and we're going to expand past that as the demand comes present. But we will be selling these ourselves in the United States, business to business. It'll be white label. We're not looking to brand this. One last note on that, another advantage is that logo. So if you see our original logo, if you go to the last slide, that wheel, because we have transparency built through this entire supply chain and we own it, we can put that on the product or on the packaging, and any corporation that decides to purchase through us is going to be able to scan a code that's backed by blockchain and know exactly where these products came through. So we've got the additional added value there.
Great. Thanks, John. Peter, you're intimately familiar with all these things, but do you have any points of clarification you'd like to make before we move on to Preetu?
Just very quickly, if you could clarify how they're having the ownership, how the local company is having ownership in the U.S. company and vice versa, how that's structured.
So ownership is going to be something that we have to figure out. I wish that I could say there was a straightforward answer to that. What we're going to invest in significantly is stakeholder analysis. We need to know how to do it in a politically, socially, and economically sensitive way. And we know the characteristics we want when we develop that contract. But we're going to be working with groups like TechnoServe who have considered these options before, and we'll be looking at Jaipur Rugs and other groups that are currently doing this and seeing how their best practices work.
Okay, John, since you had the pain of going first, we let you have a little extra time, but we do want to move on and make sure we have enough time in our hour and a half together for the next folks. So stay tuned. There will be extra group questions while the judges deliberate. Preetu, if you're ready to present farm to table, Next will be Sundar on produce pathway. So please get ready on deck. Preetu, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can share my slides. 1 second.
Are you running your own slides, Preetu?
I have my slides, but if Mehmet has them also as well, he can share them for me. That'd be easier.
Okay.
Yes, I'm just trying to.
And I guess I just got a note, Sindhu is not presenting. I couldn't tell. Peter, are we doing the video next after that, or the next person, Roman Volkov?
Yeah, I think the video is a great idea. I would do the video next.
Okay, so after you're
Alright,
done, we'll
yeah.
do the video, and after that is the Mitakus presentation.
All right. Thank you. My name is Prithu Parikh. I'm a freshman majoring in electrical and computer engineering at Carnegie Mellon University, and my project is called Farm to Table. Next slide, please. We aim to connect produce growers, distributors, and food banks in order to reduce wasted food and streamline the produce supply chain that has been so heavily disrupted by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. With restaurants, schools, offices, and other institutions and events having either reduced operations or shutting down, farmers have seen a major produce surplus due to this reduced demand. This has led to an estimated $688 million decline in sales over the last 3 months. At the same time, the pandemic has resulted in over 40 million Americans losing their jobs, leading to a 60% increase in demand at food banks, which are not able to keep up. Additionally, food banks are not able to process as much produce as they used to on site, as they are facing a lack of volunteers since people are afraid to be exposed to the COVID-19 virus, and because they want to reduce the number of people who come into contact with the produce so as not to become a vector for the virus to spread. Finally, in the middle, distributors have seen reduced demand for produce for reasons similar to farmers, which has resulted in massive layoffs. It's not easy for growers, distributors, or food banks to pivot and adapt to selling to different customers or buying from different sources, as it takes time to build the relationships required. Seeing all these problems, we asked ourselves, what can we do to fix them? That's where we come in. Farm to Table is a web-based platform designed to connect the excess capacity of produce on farms with the unmet need for produce in food banks, with distributors in the center facilitating the transaction efficiently. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. The way that it works is growers and food banks will be able to post any produce they have to sell or buy respectively. Then we will automatically match these two parties together and create a grower food bank order. From here, there are two possibilities. Either if the food bank has its own transportation, they can buy the food directly from the grower itself and then complete the transaction off our platform. Otherwise, if they are too far away from the grower or would like to use the distributor, distributors will be able to bid for the grower food bank orders. And they will also be matched with these orders automatically. And additionally, distributors will also be able to have job batching based on routes, so they can batch multiple jobs together, which will make their transactions more efficient. Next slide. Our platform prevents growers from having to throw away produce and lose money for surplus crops. It brings back jobs for distributors and creates a market for them, as well as introducing efficiency into their business with route optimization. And it provides food banks with much needed produce ready to give to people without having to utilize a large volunteer corps. Next slide, please. When compared to other existing solutions, no other service is able to match all of our platform's capabilities, as either some of them don't include distributors in their platform, don't have web apps, or don't provide automatic order batching and matching. Next slide. Growers in the US sell over $8 billion worth of produce each year. Of that amount, $5.8 billion are sold to retailers, institutions, and distributors. Since many of these places are closed at the moment, this food can instead be sold to food banks. If we capture even 1% of this market, that's $58 million worth of produce being bought and sold through our platform. Next slide, please. While we don't plan on taking a revenue at the moment, since we are trying to help all the parties involved, and they're extremely short on cash. However, as we exit the pandemic, we will begin charging a transaction fee of 2% on each transaction, which gives us a projected $1 million revenue after 1 year after starting using this model. Next slide. At the moment, we are working on developing the platform and are looking for help to do this. We hope to be able to launch a beta to customers in 1 month. with a full US launch 2 months out. Of course, the situation may change, but we plan to start charging for transactions by the end of the year in December. Thank you. If you have any questions, let me know. Sorry, you're on mute right now.
That's why I have the cards. You have about a minute left to wrap up, and then questions.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I
just
can
want
talk
to make sure you
about.
get to the good stuff, because we've characterized the problem throughout the week. So I want to make sure we give you enough time for your solution.
Yeah, I mean, we can go to the 5th slide for the product description. Just next slide. Yeah, this one right here. So to go into more detail of how it would work, essentially a grower would post if they have a surplus produce that they want to sell, they would post it onto our platform. And at the same time, food banks that have any requests for produce would post their requests on the platform as well. And then they can match their requests and produce surpluses together. And we will automatically recommend matches based on the amount of produce, the type, the location, and things like that. And then from there, distributors will be able to bid for the jobs that have been created with the growers and the food banks. Once they do that and an agreement is reached, at that point, they'll be able to complete the transaction offline on their own, which will essentially allow this initial contact, initial handshake to be met in a lot simpler than having to go and look yourself, basically.
Okay, good. Let's turn to questions. Liliana, do you have anything that comes immediately to mind you'd like to probe the team with?
Yeah, I have one question. You just mentioned, I mean, the case you're outlining is also dramatically shown due to the pandemic. But my question is, how do you see the situation or the problem hopefully after we finish the pandemic? Is it still the same situation? So do you still have the same pain you're going to address?
Right. So I think from what I understand is that right now, the biggest source of income for farmers is their sales to restaurants and offices and schools and conventions and things like that. And I think even after the pandemic, we won't return to life as usual as we do now. In perspective of restaurants, about 40% of restaurants that have closed right now may never open again. So farmers will still have this surplus of food, and food banks will still have this need for food as unemployment will still be extremely high. So I do think that after the pandemic, this will still be viable. Additionally, we can also pivot to not just selling from growers to food banks, but creating a platform that connects growers and retailers together in a more efficient way than traditionally done right now.
Okay.
Stefano, you have some questions?
So, Peter, I could have a few questions. I'll focus on one because I've been working with some food banks to try to tackle the short-term problem, which is a real problem, and I applaud you for looking into that. Have you thought about using distribution not to go to food banks, but directly to the people who need it? Because one of the problems with food banks is that currently there are huge lines. A lot of people don't have the mobility or the time to get there. And so what I'm looking at and we were working was to try to bypass that issue, bringing the food directly to those who need it. So have you looked into that? And if not, I think it can be a follow-up.
Yeah, so
and I would add to that question, there's a lack of personalization, right? I mean, people are getting boxes or bags of what's there, and everybody has their own unique dietary needs that might need to be met, not just hunger. So please consider that too.
Right. So that's one thing that I had started thinking about when I was talking to the food banks about not selling directly to people in the sense that having people order food from farms, but more like having when an order comes in from the grower, have people be able to get the food right off the trucks of distributors in the place where they need them. So instead of having all the trucks go to a food bank and having the food bank send the food out to the food pantries, having the trucks come directly to each individual location where the food is needed, and then having people being able to get the food right off the truck so you don't have these long lines and congestions that you see at food banks right now.
Exactly.
So yes, that is something I've considered.
Peter, you'll always get the last word because I want to let the others get their questions in first. Do you have any last thoughts about this project or observations?
Yeah, Just real quick, for the matching, what technology are you looking at? Will this be a traditional database? Will it just something in the cloud? Will it be something using blockchain? Will there be AI involved? Like, how complicated or how simple is it going to be?
So right now, with my knowledge, I think we're probably going to do a traditional matching to start off with, but I think definitely as we start to use this app and we start to get more data, using some sort of AI algorithm would be something that would make it a lot more efficient than traditional matching. But to start off with, we probably use a traditional matching with a database. Yes.
Okay. Very good. So Peter, shall we go to the video next? And is Roman on deck for the next live presentation? Is that the order we're going with still?
Yes, that's still
Yeah. Okay. So Mehmet, if you can queue up the video for us.
Yes, I'm on it now.
Witty Kitchen.
Sorry. The Witty Kitchen video. The pitch video or?
They have a longer video that's their presentation.
The presentation one, okay.
The pitch, yeah, it should be that. I believe it's that one. Well, that's the PowerPoint, but there should be one that's has the audio go with it.
All right, I think when I open it like this, can you hear the sound as well?
I haven't heard sound from it yet. I hear there is sound, but I think you just make the volume louder on that end.
Sorry?
If you make the volume on your computer louder, it may work.
Actually, it is on full, so I don't know what else I can do. Or maybe I open it with another application.
Hey, Peter, you need to unshare your screen. And when you share it again, you need to do it with computer sound. And then it should work.
I'm sorry, I'm not sharing
okay.
right now. Emma is sharing.
Okay, sorry, I just closed the share. So can you please tell me again how I should do it?
Now share it again, but with your sound.
I don't know where is share computer sound.
Yes.
All right. Okay, I have to type in my password. So probably now it's gonna. Thanks for the tip.
Hi everyone, my name is Joan from the Witty Kitchen. Witty Kitchen developed an AI and the IoT kitchen platforms consisting of an ecosystem of an innovative AI and the IoT enabled the smart kitchen product. Our kitchen has experienced the 3 times of the revolutions. The first generations will be the traditional appliance. The second generations will be isolated, smart kitchen product. The third generations will be the AI and the IoT times that will be smart, interconnected, multi-interfaced, speaks human languages, capture scenario-based consumption event. In Witty Kitchen, there are more than 100 of the product kitchen lines will give you the witty choices. For example, sometimes people will ask me how to cut the food waste in the kitchens. I will recommend them for these 2 products. Number 1, fridge cameras. You don't need to change your fridge. You just need to put this fridge camera in it. Every time when you close the door of the fridge, they will take a photo of it and remind you about every food and their expiry date. If you don't know what to eat tonight, maybe you can just ask hey, Waity, what can I cook for dinner tonight? And Waity will, based on the food in the fridge, give you the Waity choice. Another very popular product for the commercial teaching use is that AI rubbish bin, and it will record everything that you throw into it. And it will have an AI system to analyze all the information and give you a report about what types of the food has been wasted and how to avoid it. Our team has a work background in Asia, so we found that in Singapore there has been a rapidly growing smart teaching market in recent years. And our target customers will be the young and new middle-income populations. You may ask me what are the differences between the Waity teachings and other platforms. Compared with the Amazon Home Service and the Google Homes, our product is just half price of them. So how did we achieve it? That's because of our unique the factory to customers business models. We don't have any middleman in these channels, so that we can make sure there's no additional cost. We can give our customers with the lowest fees, lowest price, and the best qualities. Just like I said, we support the entrepreneur to achieve their dreams in kitchen. So we also provided the crowdfunding platforms in our website. This is our Waity Teachings business models. We provided both online and the offline for people to purchase. For the offline, we have an experience store in the Singapore shopping market. So we encourage our customers to touch, to use, and to experience our product, make sure they are at the best qualities. Here are our revenue models. We cooperated with this technology product. We just take a very low profit. And our subscription models, we just take $10 per month for the householders. And we also have a target advertisement plan. Here we are today. This is our roadmap, and we hopefully to receive our seed fund in the end of this year. This is our brilliant teams, and Chris has background in Samsung and the Singapore government. He is our COO, and the Queen, she is an Oxford MBA, also the co-founder of the Oxford Social Venture Fund. She is our CMO, and Joanne is me, and had the 2 food tech entrepreneur experience, and I will be the CTO of our team. Now, thanks so much for your listening, and if you have any feedback, please drop me an email. Thank you so much. Ciao.
Well, that was what we call a tight presentation, well under the time and formatted for video. Peter, I don't know if you want to step in and explain, you know, it was a time zone challenge with their team. As you can see, they're based in Asia. Was there anything missing from their presentation that you want to say, since we don't get a Q&A?
Yeah, basically just to clarify again that on the timing, one of them is in Korea, one's in Singapore, and one is in China. So for them, it's simply just very late at night. But they sent this in, and this is actually something where there was actually 2 different teams that had been starting out with ideas at the beginning of this week, and they merged to create one idea. And this is something that is entirely new that they started working on this past Saturday.
Wow. Wow. And or any of the folks who mentored them, are they on the call right now? Is there anyone who worked with that team besides you that might want to speak up and say anything?
Let's see, is Christine here?
You're on the call and you're familiar with them. They did such a great package presentation, but I don't want them to be disadvantaged by lack of Q&A. So if there's anyone who's on the call who wants to speak up, having done a mentoring or other interaction with them or a teaming conversation, please just, I don't know how to do we have raise hand set up, or are they able to just unmute themselves?
They could unmute themselves, but I don't think we have any of their mentors on right now.
Okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and move on. So, so I think we have Roman Volkow up next. Is that right? And then are we skipping
Hello?
Sohrab Market and going straight to Rosa after that? Peter?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so Rosa, you're on deck if you'll get yourself prepared mentally, emotionally, and whatever you need to do to present, but we're ready to hear now from Roman.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Very well, thanks.
Okay, perfect. All right, then I'll just introduce shortly myself. I'm Roman from Team Mitakus. We were two people, Boris and me, working on this, and Mitakus is developing solutions for food services, so for chefs in kitchen to help them reduce food waste and food costs. Why we tackle this problem of food waste is because it's a huge problem for the entire world. 1 trillion worth of food is thrown away every year, as you might know, throughout the entire value chain. And we're specifically looking at the food service. Next slide, please. So in restaurants, they are losing around 50 to 60,000 worth of food every year. That is purchased food that is just going to the bin and which is still usable, and it is basically cost at the end of the day also for the restaurants for a low margin business. Next slide, please. One of the major problems why this is happening is that there is a lack of how to keep track of what is thrown away. So the most used methodology right now is a manual, time-consuming way of writing down what has been thrown away into the bin and when, and also the analysis at the end of the week or the month for the manager or the chef to see where they can improve, where they can change, for example, the portion size. And this is why most restaurants are not doing this, especially not doing this long-term. Next slide. So our solution that we want to use is an automated system to automate this entire process of tracking the food waste that happens in the kitchen, and that with a scale and so an electronic scale and a camera that makes a photo of the food or the food waste that is thrown away, analyzes what it is and keeps track of that, presenting it to the chef. Next slide, please. So the product consists of this scale, so this tracking system, and then also a web-based software that presents all the results at the end of the week or the month to the chef and the manager, where they can keep track of everything that happened this week compared to the last week, and see how the food waste and food costs are developing. And that is accessible basically on the web browser, but also on via smartphone. Next one. That's a video. Can you please play it?
Can you hear the sounds?
No, don't. That's fine. So
you don't need the sound, okay?
I don't need the sound. I mean, you can remove the music from the video.
I don't know how to remove the
on the right side,
this.
there's a mute.
1 moment. Ah, here. Okay.
Right. So the prototype that we are building is basically a camera attached to a screen, and that to an electronic scale. So the food can be put on the scale, and the camera makes a picture. So as you can see right now, we have been testing it with simple products like apples and oranges, bananas, fruits and this. And you can, with a simple touch, basically activate the scale and track whatever has been thrown away. And that goes to the backend. The algorithm analyzes the image and finds what has been thrown away, so recognizes the fruit, and keeps track of the data, like for example, the weight and also the timing, saving that all to a database. So that way we are able to digitalize this entire reporting process and present this in a simple to understand dashboard to the chef or the manager, where they can compare each day how much they have been throwing away, what has been thrown away, how much of it, reason why it has been also thrown away. And then if we have the cost basically, we can also tell them how much money they're throwing away. So we've been testing it, as I said, with simple products right now, with apples and oranges, for example. We need to train the algorithm, but could be also able to analyze the food that is thrown away directly in the kitchen. So full plates, for example, or rotten food. But then later on, of course, also the food is coming from the guest. Next slide, please. Right, so the smart scaling system is supposed to be a part of the existing ecosystem. So what we started with was last year a software for menu recommendations and demand forecast. So with that, we're already able to acquire first customers, the first chains, and help them to reduce overproduction and food costs. And the smart scale is now basically the missing part to track exactly how much food waste is created in each kitchen and how much we're able to reduce that, which will help us to reduce even more the food cost and bring it up to reduction of more than 60 or 70% in each kitchen. Next one, please. So for that, we conducted interviews and conversations with already existing customers, like, for example, Alexander, who's a chef at Koch Manufaktur, but also with new ones or potential ones, like Andre, who's living in Switzerland and has 20 years of experience as a chef. What we found is that the use case most viable is using it in the kitchen to tracking really the waste and basically automating this entire process, as they have been doing it or trying to do it manually. And this has been a tedious and time-consuming job, which is just inefficient to do.
Roman, if you can try and wrap it up in the next 30 seconds, 2 minutes, so we can get to questions.
That's basically also the last slide. So to do that, we need, of course, a winning team. We have 4 people who are working on this right now. As I already said, Boris and myself active on this hackathon. And then we also have Ramzi and Firas, who are data scientists who are working on the analytics models, the recommendations, and the forecasting. And Boris is actually the one who built the prototype, and he has the one who's experienced in building cloud architectures with AWS and responsible for our entire architecture. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Stefano, why don't you go first? Do you have any questions burning?
Yes, thank you, Roman. A question on the competitive landscape. Have you looked at what's out there and what kind of competitor solution there are, since this is, as you rightfully said, it's a very common and significant problem for the food service industry?
Yeah, sure. So there is Vino Solutions, which is probably the most prominent or successful one in the EU. LeanPath in the US, who are around for, I think, like 14 years now. A couple of others also that are have their own solutions, but are working also on the tracking of food waste. I think that the question is mainly how will we differentiate if we use this kind of solution? So this is where it's aiming for. The thing is, as I said, it's going to be part of the ecosystem what we're offering. So the tracking is one thing. The other is also how are you going to use this data? And we have already a forecasting and recommendation system in place. So we can use this data in this field for the recommendations in the menu to create menu for the chefs and to automate this entire process.
Thank you.
Great. And Lily, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have one specific because it was not mentioned in the introduction, but I have a company in Switzerland and we are investing in startups, and I've seen several of those solutions coming close to your solution. And I have one very clear question. So what is the business case for a restaurant? Because your solution looks very asset-based, heavy asset-based. So what is, I mean, how much does it cost for the restaurant to, have this in place? What is the business case?
Okay, so the business case is that with the food waste that is tracked, you know basically in which place the waste is created. So be it coming from the customer, or for example, if it's has been overproduced or rotten. And we know that if we just look at the overproduction in the kitchen, basically, so the food waste, that is around 50 to 60,000, and it's possible to save at least 50% of that. So the business case is that we provide them the scale, so the hardware basically, and the software with it. So they have a one-time fee for the scale or for the hardware, and a licensing model or software as a service model for using the entire system, which is roughly 10 to 20% of what is saved for the restaurant.
Mhm.
Thank you. Peter, do you have a few words to say or any questions or clarifications?
No, that's been very, very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you, Roman. So we have Rosa Castizo listed up next. Is she ready to go?
Yes, thank you so much for the time, and thank you for the organizing the whole hackathon. Thank you, Peter, and thank you everyone that has been so nice during those days. As I said to the organization before, finally the idea stayed as an idea, and at the end. We are still like looking for information. That's why I just wanted to say a very brief introduction of what is going to be the project, no? And basically the idea came from many years attending to events, to United Nations, working there in Peru for 4 years, and also going to plenty of SOCAP and many food events, and looking at amazing solutions all over the world, looking at one part of the whole problem or challenge of food waste, no? So that's why we wanted to develop a very basic machine learning to pilot the idea of how we can map the different parts of the supply chain and the food waste challenge, because all of them are completely complementary, but they are not linked. So these cross-cutting and this inspiration that can be found when you are looking at the whole picture and plenty of solutions can be very powerful to bring light to the darkness, no? So basically, that is not reinventing the wheel. It's not something technologically very complicated, but at the end, it's a lot of work of looking for really solutions and make them a platform really useful for them to use and for coming entrepreneurs to use also. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. So have you seen any, either in today's presentations or throughout the last couple of weeks, people who are working on projects that will give you a leg up and get started? And what do you think the next step is for you in your particular project?
Of course, I think that all of the project that has been presented today and all the projects at the end, no, that they are looking for food waste solutions. At the end, all of them are completely brilliant, and I think that they are completely great, you know, for staying in a platform like that, you know. At the end, the platform want to be useful for that, and the next steps are gonna be like mapping the solutions and trying with the first 50 ones, trying to develop this machine learning. Yes.
Great. Lily, the light dropped off on your camera, but you're still there. Do you have any questions you want to ask?
Yeah, I'm still there. Not at the moment.
Okay, thanks. Stefano?
Just a sec, here I am. Maybe Rosa, just a question. I mean, as you think about food, the supply chain is very broad. I mean, that's one of the issue around the agri and food supply chain is that it's so wide and so global that at times it's hard to focus. So when you are talking about your idea, I mean, do you have any specific product in mind, or do you have a specific component of the supply chain, like, you know, food services or farmers? Have you thought about that, or is it about the whole complete supply chain?
I have been working with, thank you so much for the question, by the way. I have been working with farmers for a long time, and also with food waste in restaurants and in hotels. And at the end, all of them are connected, and all of them are, the solutions are at the end taking care, like in silos. And it's so amazing how connected at the end can be a solution for someone on the ground, no, for a farmer, with a solution in a restaurant, with a delivery solution, that at the end the platform want to be precisely that, no, something that can have an approach for the whole picture, and that can bring together different pieces of the same puzzle. Mhm.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you also.
Peter, do you have any thoughts?
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing the ideas on that proposal.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rosa. We look forward to helping you get to the next step, next level.
Thank you.
So I understand that Soraya is available to go ahead and talk about her her project, Red Caboose. Are you up, Soraya?
Yes.
We had a little communication problem earlier getting her confirmed, but are you just going to go verbal, or do you have some video or slides to present, or is it just you verbally?
It will just be me as like an improv presentation.
Smile is good enough. I'm glad we had a mentoring session. I'm really impressed with what you're doing. Please go ahead and give us about a 3-minute overview, and then we'll have a couple of minutes for questions.
Awesome. So I'm Soraya Hasni, and I am based in Tunisia, which is my heritage land. And a couple of years ago, I started a company named Red Caboose, 2 years ago exactly, with the aim of innovating the olive oil supply chain from Tunisia and to the US mainly, which is the largest purchaser of olive oil in the world. And the idea is to change the trade routes, the historic trade routes, with innovation, education to the farmer, and an environmentally sustainable business that benefits the farmer and the consumer with a better product. So what we've been doing is mainly focusing on the farmer's aspects of the business, with bringing technology of underground watering of the trees, with the introduction to sensory analysis for teaching about how to improve the quality of the olive oil, and at the same time finding partners and businesses in the US that can purchase a higher quality olive oil directly from the farmers to the distributors. So far our business is growing, and last year we were able to sell a decent amount of olive oil, like 80 tons, but because we are a new player in the game and olive oil is a very historic distribution market, we have to innovate, and our innovation and our values are our strengths. We care a lot about the farmers and the environment, but also quality. And if you know a little bit about olive oil, what's available in the market is not necessarily quality olive oil. So we really want to activate those three ingredients to make sure that everybody wins. And our solution is direct market from Tunisia to the consumers. We've been implementing also a network, a consortium of producers, and so far we were able to purchase the olive oil at a higher rate because we're eliminating a lot of steps in the way, and it's successful. The proof of concept is there. What we need is more buyers and people who believe in the concept, so that we can actually tackle a very serious problem, which is farmers' poverty in Tunisia, and ideally across all the producing lands of olive oil. from this hackathon, we were able also to really rethink how we can label our quality olive oil and our very streamed line of production, so that we can bring more transparency into the process. And yeah, I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a on the spot presentation, but we're very passionate. We're all four young Tunisians that combine talents. I myself am an anthropologist who came into business. So we have the ability to really interact with the farmers. We build trust. We've trained hundreds of farmers in Tunisia on sensory analysis, which is the first step to teach about the quality. We have PhDs in chemistry and biology, and we have the whole logistics of the supply chain from Tunisia figured out. So that was our bulk of work, is like how to get the producing country really aligned with the requirement of selling to California. And today, if we get orders, we can sell any quantity and very good quality. If you like olive oil, I can send you some.
Some questions in, but I have one for you. You gave some statistics about the volume that you are already sending to the US compared to the volume of what goes to Italy and gets packaged there, sort of white label, or what is part of the overall Tunisian mix. And then what are the one or two things you need next steps to have success out of this hackathon?
Sure. So historically, Tunisia is a bulk seller, and we don't sell directly to the purchasing market. So our olive oil gets sold to Italian distributors or Spanish distributors, and we only sell indirect. And if we look at the amount of olive oil today present from Tunisia into the US market, it's 40%, but it's not 40% coming from Tunisia. So what we're trying to do is make sure that those 40% come directly from Tunisia, because this guarantees a better price for the buyer and a better income for the farmers.
Great. Lily, do you want to take the first question, please?
Yeah, you mentioned, I mean, the main focus is that you get more buyers who believe in the concept. So what would be your concept to convince the buyers?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Would you mind repeating?
No problem. You mentioned that the main challenge you have is to have more buyers and to convince the buyers of your concept of Tunisian olive oil. But what is your concept to convince them?
Okay, so
what
we're delivering is extremely high quality olive oil at the same price as regular olive oil. Because we're eliminating the steps on the way, you're able to purchase really high quality at the same price as any regular quality. So you have more health benefits, and at the same time, you're benefiting directly the producing country.
But this is the message, but how are you going to approach, you know, again, what is the go-to-market for the buyers? How are you going to send your message to somebody who should buy it?
So for us, the argument is price and quality. If today you're buying olive oil for, let's say $3, you're buying $3 olive oil that's not meeting the quality that the consumers could have. And you could have that same olive oil price with a higher quality, which increase health benefits. And at the same time, you can label your olive oil produce. We're doing white label only for now. So you can, if you're a buyer and you're reselling the olive oil, you can market it as organic, as high quality, as specialty olive oil, but for the same price. So it's completely a win for the buyer.
Okay. Stefano, do you have any questions?
I guess one is probably a follow-up on Lily, and then another one. So, yeah, Soraya, you talked about quality. So, you know, and that's clearly a competitive advantage of olive oil. I mean, it's a very healthy oil, and it has a lot of, you know, positive perception around it. So when you say quality, can you make a couple of examples on what kind of quality can you guarantee the buyers so that they can really perceive? It's not just a perception, but it's fact-based. And then the other one, which is more about your company, is where are you able to generate revenues for you? So is it by services to the farmers? Is it by a percentage in the sales? So where is the revenue model for your company?
So to be clear, we're able to provide any quality of olive oil. Our preference is higher quality.
Yeah.
So, but we have a network of producers based all over Tunisia, which is the third largest or second largest, depending on the year, producer in the world. So we have access to a very large quantity of olive oil, whether good quality or regular olive oil as the market needs. So what we can do is match the need of the buyer with what the consumer needs for that specific buyer. Or we can suggest the produce that we have and that we think could be a good match. Like if you are selling in the East Coast or the West Coast, the taste of the consumer is different. We're able to offer a different sampling that meets the consumer needs. So we don't just aim for the high quality. We do have it, which is a win of our company from the education and from the relationship that we build with the producers, but we have everything available. And we have large quantities available because we have the relationship. The way we have been doing business as of now is by a commission from the buyer, a percentage. We are new in this game and we could totally use mentorship and improvement of our business model. But for now, we've been able to sell for, our first sale was $300,000 and we got a 1% commission on it.
Perfect, thank you, Zoe.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Peter, Lily, a follow-up, anyone?
Yeah, just quickly, how are you making contact with the buyers, like the buyers you sold to in California? How did you make initial contact with them, and what's your strategy or plan to find? I mean, I know the argument of why the product is good, but how are you finding the people to contact?
So that's one of our challenges because we've been focusing on one side of the supply chain. The main relationships that I had is because I was at UC Davis in California, and that's where I got my olive oil sommelier certificate. And so I built a little network of distributors and based in California. The company is filed in the US, and I've had historic relationship with California, but it's not enough. We need more introduction and we need more relationship because we don't have enough of it to grow our buyers network.
Very good. Thank you, Soraya, for being able to jump in on the spot. It's something we talked about earlier. You never know when you're going to get on an elevator with someone who can help you, and you have just a few seconds to get their interest and maybe a couple of minutes if you hook them to get them to listen to your whole pitch. So we'll keep working on helping everyone refine their pitch. Those are all the presentations for the competition, but before the judges retire to their chamber and we get into our own, we can call it a question and answer or social helping networking, there is a special presentation that Peter teed up. A lot of us have heard throughout the week in various presentations about what Rob Lowe has going on with the Rescue Food Waste to Sustainable Fibers, and he's agreed to give us not a formal presentation, but to give us a little talk about this taking dairy fiber and turning it into something that is going to help us on both ends of the spectrum. So Rob, if you're ready to go, we'll do that. That'll give everyone a chance to kind of catch their breath, and then we'll send the judges into their consultation chamber. Rob?
Absolutely. I actually got something drafted up, so I would love to present to you guys, if that's all right.
Okay.
Sure.
And are you going to do it from your screen, or do you need Mehmet to run it from his?
I don't need it. I can just do it from my screen.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, are you tired of sending your food waste to landfill and polluting our environment? Well, I am. Hi, my name is Robert Lowell, and I'm the founder and CEO of Mitakus. When I visited my uncle's dairy farm in China in 2018, I was shocked to see buckets and buckets of spoiled milk sitting there. Not only because spoiled milk smells bad, but also includes our environment. So my uncle asked me to help him find a solution. And that was when I first investigated the impact of food waste to our climate. In fact, 1/3 of the food we produce around the world goes to waste every single year. And that creates 100, and amongst that, 128 million tons of milk are being dumped. Food waste creates 3.3 billion tons of greenhouse gases. Just imagine 37 million cars driving on the road at the same time. But don't worry, we created a sustainable and affordable solution. My company, Mitakus, is the world's only biotech that rescues excess milk and re-engineer it into sustainable protein fibers, like the one I'm showing up right here, and biopolymers that can replace plastic in fashion, medical, and packaging industries. You probably wonder, how is that even possible? Well, let me explain. First, we extract the bad casein protein from these bacteria-grown milk through a process we created called PROAC, means protein activation. Once we have the bad milk, we go to the next process, which we're also patent pending, called SIRI, means self-assembly purification, in which we purify the bad casein into the good casein. Theoretically, once we have that, these good casein can be made into food again to feed people that are in hunger, that are in need. But we don't want to stop there. So we created a third process called DFS, which means dynamic flow shear spinning, to spin the casein protein into the fiber that I'm showing you again. Well, our fiber use 60% less water compared to organic cotton and can be made into face mask and clothing that is super soft, biodegradable, and breathable. In fact, just like the one I'm wearing right now. And because of our unique technology, we have clients such as Nike. Nike has purchased our product and fiber to run our testing. We have also signed LI with H&M, Richemont, and Ralph Lauren. And our products have been sold to 40 countries around the world. In addition to that, we created another technology that is world-changing. It's the world's only biodegradable food packaging film made from whey. In fact, I have this prototype that is shown right here. What is whey? It's the byproduct of your yogurt, cheese, and ice cream production. This biodegradable film is 500 times stronger than the plastic film because when you bind the milk polymers together, it creates less holes than plastic or plant-based alternatives. It's non-toxic, it's biodegradable, and also it's edible. And there's so much waste out there. Because of this unique technology, we were chosen as one of the 7 finalists out of 400 applications worldwide to compete for $1 million grand prize in Singapore in July. And we have secured our upstream resource by partnering with Dairy Farmers America, which is the biggest raw milk supplier in the world, and food processors such as Danone, Nestle, and General Mills. We have a team that generates results in a fast pace. I have started 3 companies with 2 successful acquisitions, and we have a team of PhD material scientists, chemists, and marketing experts from Adidas. We are redefining circular economy in which everything begins with excess milk and ends as recyclable or biodegradable. Thanks to our innovative technology, milk can now be re-engineered to replace plastic. Welcome to the future. The next time you see excess milk, don't cry over it. Just wear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was outstanding. I want to give the judges an opportunity to ask you a couple of questions while they've got your attention now. But of course, I have a ton of questions. We'll save it till they go into sequestration. Stefano, you were animated even while you were listening to Rob. What came to your mind and what questions would you like to ask him?
So, I mean, it's fascinating to see how, we are discovering food beyond just the nutrition aspects, but food can do a lot of things. Food can take care of health, and food can help dress or can help power cars and a lot of other things. So I just saw it very interesting. One question, have you already worked with venture capital in the US or not yet?
So we have gotten interest from VC in the US. We're actually speaking with one of our potential lead investor right now.
Okay, yeah. Because I mean, based on what I heard, you're probably at a stage where it makes sense to broaden your spectrum, and the US, there is a lot of interest for this. So it's probably interesting to hear what they have to say and how to scale it up. But it's really cool. Congrats.
Thanks.
Liliana, do you have any questions before we send you to your hermetically sealed room?
Just one question, because very fascinating approach or solution. Are you really talking about the waste of milk?
Yes, we're talking about spoiled milk, expired milk, or sour milk. Milk that's gone bad, not good for a human or for animal to eat.
Okay. Do you have any numbers? I mean, I don't drink milk, I have to admit, but what is the volume globally of, wasted milk? Just to have an imagination. I mean, the solution is great, but just to see, how big is it?
I have this number for you for sure. So before the pandemic, it's 128 million tons of milk. But during this pandemic, the number increased exponentially. In fact, I read an article that says every single day in the US, 10 million liters of milk are being dumped because farmers have nowhere to sell the milk. Schools are closed down, restaurants closed down, so they have to dump the milk.
Wow.
And as one of our presenters earlier this week said, you can't stop milking the cows, right? I mean, there's other animals there's an upper limit, but you can continue to feed them until the demand comes back. But there are constraints on almost every form of livestock. And then I read recently that, in France, where everything is controlled for the denomination, for the branding, for the specifications by their federal government, they are now petitioning to allow them to add preservatives to certain cheeses so that they don't just spoil. But they're having the same problem both with fresh dairy as well as cheeses, processed dairy. And so, every dairy producing country. My quick question before we let the judges go is this the same for any type of milk, not just cow's milk, but goat's milk, anything else? Are you looking at other animals that produce the same whey product?
So potentially, our goal is to turn any type of food that has protein in it into a sustainable byproduct, whether it can be used for fashion, for medical face masks, or for packaging.
Great. Well, in the interest of everyone's time, let's go ahead. Peter, is it you or Mehmet? Are you guys going into a separate room?
I've sent the other two a link for a Google Meet room, and we'll rather just go on to mute and turn off our cameras on this channel.
Okay. So, if you need to ping me while you guys are on the other platform, you can come back with anything, but we'll give you as much time as you need. And I will not do a song and dance here, but I would like to lead a conversation with the rest of the folks. Well, we've still got Rob in presentation mode. The first couple things that came to mind for me is, pet packaging, all the sorts of various petrochemicals that are used, and some of them are sustainably developed more than others. Which of those market segments are you most prepared to replace? Mm-hmm. Whether you have to brand it for consumers to start asking for it, but which products are ready? And when you say biodegradable, obviously you want some things not to degrade so quickly. So is that a process that is controlled in the fiber making, or is it something that's added to the fabric once it's made? Obviously you don't want your clothes melting in the rain and you want your container, if it's made by this shrink wrap, to last as long as you need it. So how do you sort of control the durability versus the biodegradability?
Right. So what I mean by biodegradability, it means it has to be in a controlled setting. You can't just leave your clothes outdoor and disappear in the next hour. That would be right. And right. We talk about the market. So we start with the fiber, in which I can show you it again. This fiber, it can be made into the t-shirt that I'm wearing right now. And in fact, we have been selling our t-shirt to 40 countries around the world since June of last year. And we are beginning to switch away from B2C to B2B to supply our fibers to other big fashion companies, so they can make a change in their supply chain fundamentally. And we see that once we solve the problem with fiber, which is made from casein, there's so much whey left out there. There are actually more waste than casein waste in the world. So we thought, can we turn it into something to replace plastic? That's when we started investigating, and this is the prototype that we created. It's a food packaging film that you can use for your daily usage, like cover up food or to protect your food for getting raw too easily. So that is the type of the packaging film that we will go in the market first. But this is just the beginning. We'll expand beyond this into other industries as well.
Okay. John, I see your video on. I don't know if that means you're prepared to ask a question, but I'll ask. What I've done is try to get the grid view on mine, and if anyone wants to ask a question, put your camera on if you're able to, or just speak up. But John, I'm going to call on you. Do you have a question for Rob?
Yeah, so amazing technology, very impressive. I am coming a bit from the life cycle assessment background, and an issue that we often run into is which environmental issue we're wanting to tackle. So if you compare a styrofoam plate to a paper plate, the styrofoam plate uses about 1/9, or produces 1/9 of the emissions that a paper plate does. So it's way better for global warming to be using that styrofoam plate than a paper plate. But if you're looking at toxicity or solid waste, it's the exact opposite. So I'm quite curious how energy intensive or how impactful is this product in the different realms of the threats that we're facing environmentally?
Well, first is the water you use. We in our estimation, we use 6% less water compared to the process of making organic cotton. Also, our process is non-toxic because it's made from the protein, it's made from dairy, so it can biodegrade more easily. And if we're to consider even more, speaking of market, go beyond the technology, there are three things that customers care about. First is messaging, whether it's sustainable, whether it's good for the environment. Well, obviously we hit that part. Second is the price. Our fiber will cost less than model, bamboo, and organic cotton, so it makes it very competitive in the market. And third will be the performance. Our fiber, because it has milk in it, and milk itself has amino acids, which are good for people that have skin allergy. So it can be made into apparels, textile that are close to the body, like t-shirt, underwear, socks, face masks. Also has the antibacterial and allergen-free property that are good for people for daily wear or for their sleepwear.
More questions, John? You've asked some of the best questions all week, I have to say, so thank you for that. Looking to see if anyone else has enabled their camera, and they have not. So I'm gonna ask, oh, there we go, Dr. Adal, another excellent questioner, please. Go ahead.
All right, cool. This is amazing project. I really like it a lot, and I think you've answered a lot of those questions. And I have like couple kind of things. So I'm assuming that you're producing fiber that can be spun in a regular spinning machine in factories, correct?
Correct.
And, perfect. So have you tried to see how it fares mixing it with different other fibers?
Oh yes, we have. In fact, this shirt is made from the blend of our milk fiber and model.
Perfect. And have you tested allergies? Like
that is for life cycle analysis, so we have to do that later on.
Okay, and the last one there, do you have any sales out of those in the States at all, or the EU, or just you're still in the trial phase?
I'm sorry?
The sales, do you have like sales revenue numbers?
Yeah, so we generated, so last year we sold basically from B2C, and we sold over $111,000 just online in 9 months.
And do you do any direct marketing to like healthcare sectors and so forth?
That is one thing we consider, like what I mentioned, if our technology can apply to, let's say, medical appliances, face masks, stitches, something, or even gloves made from disposable plastic. That is what we look for.
Okay, sounds great. I'd love to talk with you more about those offline then.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I saw Tanya's face pop up for a second. Tanya, do you have a question? If not, we'll go to... She's popping in and out. I see John Cantor's face. Why don't we go to John first, and Tanya, if you're able to stabilize your microphone and camera, we'll go to you next. Hey, John, how are you?
Good, good. How you guys doing? Hey, Rob. So I know you talked a little bit about the kind of the finished product, but I know when we talked earlier, you're kind of, you know, looking at kind of the top of the funnel. Where are you looking to source this spoiled milk and some of this whey protein? And I guess as we look at our networks, who can we kind of think about that maybe best positioned to help you secure some of that raw material?
Thank you for the question, John. So for our upstream resource, we want to partner with grocery stores or retail stores where we find out most of the food waste occur. And that is for the fiber we're creating. And for the whey, we found out that most of those whey waste occur at the food processing level. So I mentioned that we're speaking with Nestle, we're speaking with General Mills, Danone, and Lennon Oaks. So these are the type of resource we would love to have.
I haven't seen anyone else quite yet, so I'm going to ask a follow-up question, and then we'll open it up for people who want to talk to some of the other presenters or just have some cross-chat as well. You say you've done B2C so far. What was the marketing hook? What was the way that you got this new concept, this new product in front of people, and what about the way you're marketing do you think actually resonated with people? Was it the environmental sustainability? Was it the novelty of it? Was it some other property of the fiber that you're creating? Tell us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So with marketing, we didn't spend any dime on running ads or anything like that. We got most of our traction from publications. We've been featured on Forbes, Business Insider, Vogue, even China Central Television, which broadcasts to 1 billion viewers worldwide. And that really helped us get a momentum to launch our product in China next month. And there are three things that resonate with normal consumers. First is the sustainability, the messaging behind it, and how we can recover food waste and bring in new life, give it a new purpose. Second is the performance of our product. I think I mentioned earlier that our product is so soft that customers come back and tell us they will wear it to sleep as their PJ. So that's a huge validation to the quality of our product. And third will be the price. Our product is like 1/3 of the price of the silk, but offers the same sensation as silk, that silky touch, super comfortable. And it's also costs less than organic cotton or modal in the industry. So when you combine all these three components together, it makes us very competitive in the market.
So instead of drinking a glass of milk to get a good night's sleep, you just slip into some of your milk byproduct. John popped up again. John, do you have another question?
Always. So I'm really curious, looking into developing markets, what kind of infrastructure is necessary for this type of production to occur? And I asked this specifically thinking in terms of India. It's the largest dairy producer in the world, but they're unable to export the vast majority of that because the quality standards are so low. It's really hard to access these small markets where there's individuals that have milk that spoil before it gets to market. Is it possible for them to embrace this technology, be producers and manufacturers as well?
I'm really glad you brought up India. We have, in fact, been in touch with one of the biggest family-owned businesses in India. And they have told us there's so much milk waste out there. And yes, our technology should be able to apply to anywhere in the world. In fact, first of all, we will license, we will do a B2B part in which we supply the fiber in-house. But we want to license our technology in the future. So people from India, companies from US or Europe can also use our technology to create the fiber with the product they want.
John, while we got you on the line and unmuted, I bet there were a lot of people who had questions for your presentation, but because you were first out of the chute, they hadn't had a chance to digest everything and think about it. So I'm gonna invite folks to actually fire some questions at you before I take the prerogative of the chair. Is there anyone raising their hand to ask? Come on, Dr. Adel, you always have a good question. Do you have any? There he is.
Hey. So my question regarding like one of the points in the sense that you are trying to aggregate different buyers and sellers and farmers around the globe, especially the smaller ones, right?
Yeah, a really good example actually came up with Soraya. That is exactly the type of instance that we want to be around for, we want to facilitate that type of organization and make it so they instantly have access to overcome all those buying and selling barriers within the United States.
So you basically
got still on the line. I'm going to ask her to we'll moderate a little dialogue. Hopefully, you know, if any of you get bored, then you have to help steer the conversation in another direction. How would you help Soraya? What is the advice you would give her? Sorry if I cut you off, Adel. You can jump in too.
Yeah, I think I've completely cut off Dr. Patel as well. But what we need to do, so coming from my trade background and law background, I'm not equipped with the tools to make direct suggestions to Soraya, but what we're trying to accomplish with the model is to aggregate the talent that could do that, where we could look at the process improvements and we could create that institutional knowledge as these different groups set up, where Soraya would say, look, we're creating this level of impact in Tunisia. These are the issues that we're facing right now in the international market. You know, we're not able to capture the brand recognition or anything else. We're having to approach all of these retailers in the United States fresh, and they don't trust our supply chains. They don't understand the quality. They don't understand that we're going to deliver on time. So if she was instead able to come to Omni and say, we want to partner with you, and we would have the verification techniques and the technology that runs through the supply chain for monitoring, then when we're speaking to Costco, Costco would say, oh, you're with Omni. Like, we already recognize them. We've worked with them on these several other products. Or Soraya says, we want to enter this market. Then we say, good, we're already working with somebody in that market as well. It's about creating the longevity and permanence and institutional knowledge for that type of operation.
Soraya, what kind of questions does that bring to mind when you hear that?
Well, the first question is, like, as it's a startup and it hasn't been implemented yet, it's like, how would you do the convincing for the partners? It sounds like it's like double convincing.
It requires building the business first. So this is something where you have to start somewhere, and you have to start with those connections. The way that we're intending to do that is having this LLC that operates in the United States with a sales team that's developing over time. And when we first start out, we're going to be in the same boat as far as outreach to this company, trying to find the right contact within that company, making the sales case to them, and then getting on board and saying, look at the QR code on this, we use blockchain, you're never going to run into issues. After a couple of years, they say, wow, this vendor is meeting everything on our scorecard. They're the best vendor we've got. We trust them. And then when we come with another product or project, they're already on board for it. So you're absolutely right. Initially, when we're just starting out, we're having to create these projects ourselves in order to create that trust.
And I presume that means that you're gravitating towards products where there is a need for verification of the authenticity of whether it's the brand or the quality of the commodity or the product that's going into it. Is that what makes it valuable to go through your methodology, or is there some other factor?
Exactly. So there's two aspects to that. There's the quality aspect, which is extremely important. I'll go back to the Areca palm example. That product already exists in the United States, but it's incredibly expensive. It's 50, 60 cents a plate when a paper plate's sitting at 14 cents a plate. So you're only seeing at really nice events. Now, only a small percentage that's making it to the US based almost entirely on the quality control issues, which are easily mitigated, but they haven't been tackled because it's just a bunch of smallhold farmers producing this. There's a second aspect to this, though, which is overcoming the cultural barriers. We have a US, Six Sigma design specialist that's going to look at this and say, how is this fit for the consumers in the United States? What are the critical to quality elements for products like this in the United States? And they work with those supply chains and give them knowledge that you cannot have if you're Indian living in India your whole life, if you're Tunisian living in Tunisia your entire life. Just like I'm not going to be able to walk over there and know what all of the customers want. So it's bridging that cultural gap and allowing them to capture market demand in a more effective manner.
Although you stayed visible, I felt bad that I cut you off, but I wanted to bring Soraya into the conversation and not to exclude you. Jump in, please.
That's a perfect kind of like a trio here. And I love it when we end up in a hackathon with a few companies actually discovering that they can work together in doing that. So like I'm imagining that Soraya's company can become one of John's like success stories. So poster child of like, hey, Soraya was doing this much in sales. We connected with us within 6 months. She has quadrupled her sales and like everybody's happy. And I get invited to lots of cool parties. But what I'm saying here is a few points. One, it seems to me that your biggest kind of like, value is in finding those in developing countries and trying to bring the best quality into the developed countries to kind of like achieve that equation, right? So there are a few channels that are interesting to go through. I'm sure that you might have went through them. So some are through the United Nations, where they provide support and logistics for those. And you might piggyback on some programs like for the different entities like UNICEF or the World Food Organization or things like that in each. The other one is almost all of the different countries have cultural attaches and trade attaches in the embassies in the state. So sometimes working with those would be good. And then also in the countries themselves, the Ministry of Trade or Agriculture might be another kind of like avenue of trying to kind of like establish at least a presence for preferential tariffs or taxations or something like that. I know examples like Egypt, where they provide you with a tax break if you are doing something for export. So it might be the same in Tunisia. I don't know, Soraya?
It depends on the product. There's a very strict list of what can and cannot be exported and how to sell it.
And I would say in the U.S., each state, almost every governor has an office of economic development or investment or trade. And if you are in a position to be creating jobs, I actually invited a couple of states, commissioners of economic development or job authorities to listen in. And of course, we're going to send some of these recordings. Well, we'll send them links once this is up. So even if they're not on the call now, that they might be able to incent you, even with a small number of jobs created, to set up an operation in their state or to work through a distributor in their state, because they have an incentive to help grow their state economies too. I'm sorry we don't have some of the state and local government folks who were available earlier this week that I see on this call. I'm scanning the names. One of the reasons I asked Rob about, not only is his presentation good, but I asked him the marketing question is, I didn't know this answer, but he basically said he did it with zero advertising dollars. And I think it's important for any unique product or high-end premium product to have a good story that's authentic, and word of mouth is actually a science. There are practitioners of it. I know one of the best, Ted Wright with FizCorp in Atlanta, goes around the world teaching people how to sell into the major American markets. But you need to not mistake advertising, marketing, and sales. Those are three distinct phases of the business process. And it's never too early to start planning that, because particularly if you have something that's unique or premium, you need the story to go with it. And it's not, branding isn't just putting a label on something, it's the whole integrity. And we had a really good presentation about that this week, if any of you remember the bullseye analogy. I see Peter's face is back. Are you all ready to all come back? And
we are. Lily's just coming back in now as well.
Okay. While you're getting that, I'll just ask, they're not to leave out Pritu and Roman and Rosa, if there were any other last questions that the audience wanted to ask any of those other presenters. Otherwise, we'll go back to the judges as soon as they're all back on the screen. Anyone want to speak up for the good of the order? All right, then Peter, I'm handing the baton over to you, and I'll sit back while you and your judges roll out the best, and then I'll do a little wrap before you do your wrap.
All right, sounds good. So we want to start out by saying we had obviously a lot of great projects, a lot of great ideas, but we were really looking at what best was addressing the question, what was best addressing that idea of food waste in particular, that original idea we were starting out with. And so for that, we saw the farm to table as the best project in that space, the one that most clearly addressed that issue.
We're getting some feedback from you. I don't know if you have two microphones on or two devices going. I know you're doing both things at the same time, but I don't know if I'm the only one, but I was getting feedback, and I want to make sure the recording is clear. Okay, good.
Any better now? All right, great. So we saw overall, we were looking at that that main question, that main premise that we started out the event with, of looking at food waste and what as one of the clear aspects of the food supply chain issues we're facing. And so with that, we saw that Farm to Table had the clearest plan for us in addressing this food waste issue of really seeing where we're missing food waste and how to solve that issue in a comprehensive way. And as runners up to that, we also saw that Witty Kitchen also was addressing those issues using the smart devices to find where waste was taking place, as well as Mitakus on the restaurant side. So with that, we would put Farm to Table as the leading choice coming out of this, and with Witty Kitchen and Mitakus as the runners up. And alongside that, though, the other ideas, I mean, we had some great concepts coming out of this. We really like all the ideas that we've seen. We just were looking then at what was most focused on the main question we're looking at, and what was most focused on that food waste issue. So that, Preetu, congratulations. That was a great presentation, very focused. And yes, thank you all for it. We're really fortunate to have all of you participating and sharing all your ideas here with us today.
Very good. Thanks, Peter. Any comments from our other judges, or are they going to let you be the lead shark in the Shark Tank for today? One of our goals going forward is to have more events where there are also people with capital to finance and funders, whether that's private capital, angel investors, or government partnerships, because a lot of these public goods that we are creating, are in sync with national goals, international goals, to help both on the agriculture side, the hunger side. I've made a commitment to Peter to pass along some of these to leadership at the U.S. Agency for International Development, as well as the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Department of Commerce, and of course the State Department, where he has as many contacts as I do. A lot of what we've created here, I think, is a testament to his personal energy, Tanya's energy, and to the foundational support we've had. And we want that to continue. Peter's going to wrap things up with a little bit of what comes next, but I would be remiss if I didn't thank those who've been mentors along the way, those who've given presentations, really just those who participated at any level has made this, but particularly IADI and IADI Foundation, the BMW Foundation. You can see all these logos at the bottom of the splash page for this. Focal House, FinTech for Good, Accelerate Insight, Southern Methodist University, SMU, Hunt Institute for Engineering and Humanity, and the Global Inclusive Economy Society. I don't think I missed any, but if I did, Peter, in your wrap, please thank whoever else we need to in the needful. But thank you all for your time and energy, and more importantly, thank you for letting those of us who've been mentors and facilitators get a chance to hear your story. And I certainly will be available going forward to help any of you that reach out to me directly or through Peter. So thanks again, Peter, for letting me be part of this.
And thank you for moderating this and other events as well, Bob. Going forward from here, we're looking at this not as the end, but as a beginning, as a point from which we can continue this community and this network of people. I know some of you who are on the call have great ideas that weren't ready to present yet tonight, but that you're still working on. So we're looking to still have the mentors staying involved as much as possible, as much as they have time to allow. They're still looking for new resources, new speakers, having continuing events. We'll have others. We've met other speakers during the course of this event that we weren't able to fit into this schedule, but that we'll have it at upcoming events. So we'll have additional speakers, additional networking, additional podcasts and webcasts we'll put up. So we'll have more materials to put up to continue this community. We'll also, of course, keep the Slack channel open. And anyone who's new to this community who would like to join that, we can also add you to there. And that's a great vehicle where you can keep sharing resources and sharing contacts. We really want to make sure that the projects that came out of this, either those that were ready for presentation tonight or those that are still in progress, that we keep moving forward and keep connecting you with the networks that we can reach out to really just keep making an impact and keep building upon these ideas. So don't consider this competition or this presentation tonight to be the end of the event. Rather, this is the beginning of the next step going forward. And we'll be in contact with all of you and look forward to continue working ideas together. And I see Lily's got a hand up, or it's a thumb raised. Okay, great. So Thank you all tonight, and really the greatest thank you to all of you who participated. I know a lot of the mentors and the speakers took a lot of time out to really be active and to share their knowledge and share their insights, both in big group sessions and in individual mentoring, coaching, and so really, and of course for our judges. So thank you for all those who took time to share, to be a part of this community, and we look forward to continuing to work forward together going forward.
Bye.
Perfect. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good evening.
Great job, Peter. Really outstanding.
Thank you, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye.